Hello and good morning, everyone. This is Steve Hall with Verteks Consulting. Welcome, everyone, to our Mitel Connect webinar series. Today, we're going to be covering the MyVoice Connect client. I've got a couple of new things to share, and then we'll be going through a full Connect client demo. Good for end users, also good for administrators to know all the things that the end users may find in there and have questions about. So let's go ahead and dive in. One thing I wanted to let people know about, some of you may know, some of you may not have known about some of the new phones that are available. So I just thought I'd take a moment and let you know about that. A few years back, Mitel released the 6900 series of phones for MyVoice Connect. So many of you probably already know about those. On my screen right now, you can see there's a picture there of the 6940 to show you what those look like. That's the one with the kind of largest screen, the touch screen there. That's the definitely the executive kind of version. You'll notice a couple neat features about it. The handset that you see there on the screen does not have a cord attached because it's Bluetooth connected to the phone, which is a nice feature. There's Bluetooth in the phone for that handset, as well as for connecting like your smartphone. You can connect your cell phone to it so that when a call comes in on your cell phone, you could choose to just answer it with your desk phone, either headset or handset on your desk phone. That's kind of a nice feature if you like the headset that you're already kind of wearing for your desk phone. And then that Bluetooth also lets you actually pair it with Bluetooth headset. So if you've got like some a Bluetooth headset with a microphone that you like to use, you can actually pair that with your phone for taking the calls rather than use a dedicated telephony type connected headset. So that's the phones that have been out for a few years. So there's the 6940 that you see on the screen. There's a version with a little bit smaller screen, the 6930, and a 6920, a little bit smaller screen yet. What they've recently come out with is the W variant of those phones. W meaning wireless. So there's a 6920W, a 6930W, 6940W. Those have Wi-Fi built into them, so they can join your Wi-Fi network. So those are really nice to use in areas where maybe you've lacked some cabling. I think they're a really good candidate for if you need like a wall mount phone, maybe in a break room, a lobby. I know in some cases we've had some customers that were concerned about having a phone in a publicly accessible area, and that the jack, that someone could unplug the phone and plug in a laptop. So this wireless phone is a possibility for kind of getting around that. And they've been shipping these phones now for a few months. One of the things they've done is they've recently released the server version of the MyVoice Connect server software that will fully recognize and support these phones. So for a while, these phones have been out, and we've had to manually update the firmware, a little bit of a process there. And when they show up on your phone system in Director, they just show up as a regular 6930 or 6940. Now in the latest version, 19.3 SP3, which is the latest upgrade that's available for your Mitel Connect system, it will fully support those phones. You can just plug them in out of the box and they'll grab the right firmware, as well as they're fully distinguished inside Director. So when you look at your list of phones, you'll be able to see which ones are 6940s and which ones are 6940Ws. And of course, they still have the Bluetooth in them. In fact, they've upgraded the Bluetooth to 5.0 in the latest ones, and done some energy efficiency tweaks to them as well. So that's the latest phones that are shipping now. Like I said, those W phones, Wi-Fi built in. So that's just something to be aware of. And with that, I'm going to take down my slide because I just wanted to show that phone while we went over that. All right, there we go. So we're going to look at the latest version of the Mitel Connect client. A while back they went to this blue theme. So the older version kind of had the typical Windows gray, kind of like the toolbar looks like over here on the right-hand side. Couple versions back they went to the blue. So most of you are probably already on that version. If not, you can talk to us about an upgrade there. We're gonna we're going to get into a full demo. But before I do that, I had one other thing I wanted to show. We've had a couple people that have asked us about this, and I wanted to show. There's something out there called a TEL URL. TEL meaning telephone, TEL, URL, like a link, what is it, Uniform Resource Locator, another word for a link on the internet. But phone numbers displayed on web pages are typically coded in this TEL URL, and you can, with the right settings in place and having the Mitel Connect client installed, you can click to call those links from those web pages. So I want to walk you through that because we've had some questions about that. So the way we get to that setting, so obviously if you've already got the Mitel Connect client installed on your computer, we just need to basically tell Windows that that's the program we want to use. We're going to do that using the program defaults, same way you set like your preferred browser and that sort of thing. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to settings. Oops, come over here. There we go. Pull that over here. Okay. So the Windows settings control panel, we're going to go under apps in here. We're going to go into, default apps, and choose default apps by protocol is the link that we need to find here. So choose default apps by protocol. Once we go into that, we're going to get a list of several different defaults that are available for different protocols here. My computer's being a little slow this morning. All right, here we go. So default apps, we can scroll down here through the list here, and what we're looking for is that TEL URL. So we'll come down here all the way down. TEL, URL TEL, and we need to set that to, in this case, I've already got it set to Mitel Connect. You can set, whatever program you have on there. In our case, it's going to be the Mitel Connect software. We're going to let that know to interpret those TEL URLs on the internet and pass that information over to our Mitel Connect client. So once we have that set, if we pull up a browser, right, and again, bring it over to the right page. Let's just go to, I'm going to go to like maps, for example, and let's look for, whoops, I was trying to go for restaurants, but that'll work. Show me the phone number here. Go to restaurants here. We can look at the details here so we can get a phone number on the screen here. Here we go. Got a phone number. Want to call the phone number. Actually, let me minimize this so we can see the Connect client there as well. When I choose to call the number there, it's going to give me an option here. I do have to kind of set this preference to say that I want to allow Google to open these links in my Connect software, and then it goes ahead and puts that number into my dialer in my Mitel Connect client, and then of course I can just hit enter, or I can hit the green button to initiate that call. So again, just wanted to point out the TEL URL, to be able to dial phone number links from the internet. You do set the Windows default app for that, and then you'll have that feature enabled. Okay, so I'm going to back out of there because I don't want to call them right now. And we'll dive into the Mitel Connect client. So the Mitel Connect client, as many of you know, is a piece of software that handles a lot of user settings for your Mitel Connect profile. It allows you to place and receive calls using whatever the endpoint is for those calls. So, some people will, call this a soft phone. It can be a soft phone. It can also be a remote control for your desk phone. And in a sense, it can even be a remote control for your cell phone if you're using external assignment. We'll talk about that a little bit. So whatever your whatever your audio device is for your phone calls, this can kind of act as a remote control software for that. It runs on, Windows, of course, Windows desktops like I'm using here today. It'll work on a terminal server, Citrix, Macintosh computers. We've got versions for all of that. And as I know we did a recent webinar, we went into Active Directory, single sign-on options. You can either sign on with your Windows username if you're in a domain environment. Of course, local accounts that we define in Director. And we've got options for deploying those settings and the software via GPO, so we can definitely help you out with that. One thing I do want to show is a couple of things inside the Mitel Connect director that as an admin we need to know and have set properly for our users. So I'm going to pull up my Mitel Connect director here. And of course, when you first log in, it brings you to the dashboard here, gives you some charts about the overall health of the system. Anytime I log into Director, I always just like to take a quick peek at my system and make sure that my system health looks good. I can see under my communications column here, 7 of 7 devices are talking to each other. So that means everything can see everything. Everything is green or yellow, which is fine. Yellow just means you might have a couple of phones unplugged somewhere, or in this case, somebody was using soft phone and turned it off. So not a big problem. You want to look for anything red in there. But then moving on to get to the settings, we're going to go to the wrench here. And we're going to go under users and users again to get to our individual user list. And one of the settings I want to show is the access license. So if we're looking at this user here, Andrew, I can click this button here to get a better view of the details of Andrew's extension. And as I scroll down here, I can see the access license here is set to phone only. So if this is set to phone only, this user will not be permitted to use the Connect Client software. That there is a license for that, depending on the bundle that you have for this user. In this case, the phone only will not allow the software. So Connect Client is kind of the basic software that most of us are familiar with. Most users are using the Connect Client license version of the software that has most of the features we're going to see today. The next 3 here add just a couple of more features. So the first one being Workgroup Agent. Workgroup Agent, if you're working in a workgroup environment where you're using workgroups to queue and distribute calls, the Workgroup Agent allows the user to log in, log out of that workgroup when they're ready to take calls and when they don't want to take calls, kind of like a contact center, but kind of a light version of that. They can also see the queue, how many calls are stacked up in there. The workgroup supervisor gets all of those same features. They can log in, log out, take calls from the workgroup if they want to. But in addition, they have an agent monitor window that allows them to see all the agents that are currently logged in. And if they need to, they can log somebody in or log somebody out as a supervisor. And I'll show you that when we get into the Connect Client demo. And then the last one is operator. The operator gives that user a little bit more detail when they look at their contact monitor, when they're looking at the users that are on the phone. They can see a little bit more detail there, and when they can also do what's called drag and drop transfer in the Connect client, where they can take an active call that they've answered, and they can drag it over and drop it on one of the contacts. And they get a few more options there for how they want to transfer the call. They can do blind transfers, consultative transfers, park the call somewhere, just using the Connect client and the drag and drop functionality. Of course, all those functions, transfers are available to someone using the phone, but using the software, they're a license controlled feature there. And so that's where those settings are at. The next thing I want to look at is programmable buttons. So programmable buttons, a lot of us are used to the buttons that we want to have on our telephone. So you've got the phone, the buttons on the side of the screen there that you can set up for speed dials, what are called extension monitors. Maybe you've got buttons there for doing, if you're in a contact center environment, maybe it's a monitoring, or a supervisor has the ability to do whispering to their agents. Those are some features that sometimes get set up on telephone buttons. But in the same section under buttons, we have the client toolbar tab here. I know, let's see, my extension, Steve here, has a toolbar here called Steve's Toolbar, with a couple of buttons that I have created for this toolbar. And this is a toolbar that we'll be able to turn on in the Mitel Connect client. So I've got a couple of buttons here that are kind of handy, especially, again, if you're in a contact center environment. One of the neat things we can do with a button is invoke a URL, so launch a web link. And in this case, we're pointing it to our contact center and giving me the agent login page. So if you've got agents, they can pull up their Mitel Connect client, they can click on a button, and it'll bring them to the contact center login so they can get that process started and get logged in there and start taking calls. Or if you've got other URLs, primary piece of software that you guys may use in your environment, you can set up links to that, things that are handy for the users, or even in this case yourself, because right now we're under just Steve and we're looking at Steve's toolbar. So these are buttons that are only available to Steve. Again, we can set up, dial number, speed dial options. We can give it a name and a phone number, obviously, if I need to call Mitel technical assistance. I've got a speed dial for that. So these are the personal toolbar buttons that we can set up. System-wide, we can set up buttons for all of our users, because obviously we don't want to do this for every single user if we're using this feature. We can come down on the left here under features, and then all the way down to client and global toolbars, as opposed to the personal toolbars. Now we have global toolbars we can create. So we can create a toolbar here, and we can go ahead and predefine a whole bunch of buttons. So in this case, we've got several monitored extensions for our internal users here. We've got silent monitor feature, which again is kind of one of those contact center features where someone can listen in on another call for either training or supervisor purposes. And of course, there's permissions. Just because you give someone the button, unless they have the right permissions defined by the user groups and whatnot, they're not going to be able to do anything with that. So there's kind of a couple different controls in place for that. So here's where we can configure these global toolbars. Once we have these global toolbars created, then we actually do have to assign them to user groups. So they're not available to everybody just because we've created it here under global toolbars. We do have to go to our user groups section here, select which group we want to use. So in this case, I'll go to our training users, for example, and we're going to go to our profile tab. And here's toolbars, and I have a selection of all of those global toolbars we were just looking at. And I can choose which global toolbars or which global toolbar button choices I want to give to the users in this training users user group. And then once we have that set, like I said, either global toolbars that we assign to a user group or programmable button client toolbars that we give to a specific user, then in the software, they can enable this toolbar. But to do this, by default, that toolbar is not on. Users do have to be shown that they need to go here and check this box here to show the toolbar. So I can toggle that, off. That's the default, and then I can show toolbar here and bring that back. When the toolbar is first turned on, it's actually blank. So as you saw, there's several different global toolbars. I also have a personal toolbar. There's a lot of different buttons that are available to me, so that toolbar could get very, very long. So it starts out blank, and then I can come down here and I can click this little plus sign, pull this over here, and this shows me all the toolbar buttons that are available to me based on either my personal toolbar or the global toolbars that are assigned to me. And I can choose which buttons I want to have displayed on here. So I can check off the ones that I want, close this window when I'm done. And then if I want to reorder any of these, maybe I want to take Chuck here and I want to bring him up to the top because he's someone I call a lot. So I'll bring him up here. You can drag and drop. And so, yeah, that's the toolbar. This shows me the status of these users right now. None of these guys are on the phone. They're all green, idle, ready to take a call. No one's either on the phone or has their, out of office do not disturb turned on. So they're all green. I'll either see them go orange, if they're on the phone, or red if they've got their, do not disturb or out of office features turned on. One of the buttons I have here that's kind of handy is the transfer to mailbox button. So if I'm on a call and I want to send a call to someone else's voicemail, I can, it's grayed out right now because I'm not on a call, but I can click that button and then I can, send it to the user, whose mailbox I want to send that call to without ringing their phone. So it just gives me a quick way to access that feature. And then, of course, those other speed dials or toolbar buttons that I showed you, the Connect Client login. So if I click that, it just brings me here to my Connect contact center interaction center login. So I can log in as a contact center agent. Or if I want to do a speed dial, of course, I can select that option there. So that's the toolbar functionality. Again, you just have to make sure that the users are aware that they do have to turn that on because it doesn't show them that option by default. So now to get into the rest of the Connect client, we're going to start at the very top here where it says name or number. This is what they call the quick dialer. If we click on this, it actually opens up a search where we can search our entire directory, the entire directory of our phone system, as well as if we have it enabled to search our Outlook contacts. It'll reach in there and find any results there. Or we can just type in a phone number if we want. So, for example, I can type in the main number here at Verteks, 352-401-0909, and I can simply hit enter. Now, like I said, because this is remote control for my phone, as soon as I hit enter, my phone over here goes off hook and makes that call. I'm going to stop that. The next thing we have here is the dial pad. So when you're on a call, a lot of times you'll have a need, especially if you're, if you're not using your desk phone, maybe you're using soft phone, and you need to send some digits over the call. You need to know where this dial pad is. So you need to enter an extension number. You need to enter a meeting access code, that sort of thing. You can access the dial pad here. To enter those digits. You can even make a call from here, as opposed to just typing in the numbers. You can dial this way. All right, so the next thing here, I do want to get a call up. So I'm going to call out to my cell phone here. And I do want to show you guys what an active call looks like here. So the call is established, and you can see that in a couple different places. You can see over here that the call is up. I can make this a little bit bigger so I can see the full routing slip of the call. Again, if you're not familiar with the routing slip, that is kind of a receipt for the call, shows everything that happened with that call. So in this case, it's a pretty simple call. Extension 1455 called Steve Hall at this phone number right here. While I'm on the call here, obviously I have the option to end the call. I can put the call on hold. I can mute the call. I can transfer the call. Call notes. You can add a note to the call that goes into the call history. Again, I can choose to view that routing slip or not. If I choose to transfer the call, it's going to open up this window over here that gives me some more details about, or gives me some more options as to where I want to transfer that call to. So I can type in an extension here. So if I type in an extension and make a selection, it doesn't necessarily transfer the call. It gives me a choice now if I want to do a regular blind transfer, just send the call on with no warning, consultative transfer, so it'll put the call that I'm on hold and let me talk to Brian here and let him know who I've got on the phone and who I'm going to transfer to him. The intercom transfer, which means you kind of come on that user's speakerphone and let them know you're sending them a call. That's what the intercom feature does. Of course, park, if you want to park that call on his phone, which essentially puts the call on hold on his phone. That's what the park feature does. Whisper, if he was on the call, I could kind of, if I had the right permissions, I could whisper over his current call and let him know who's on the phone for him. Or I could just send it to this user's voicemail. So there's the options we have, with the transfer. Maybe I don't want to transfer, so I can exit out of there. One thing I do want to show is if we look at our contacts tab, I've got all my different contacts here in the system. There's another way we can transfer a call because I do have the operator call manager. I can actually take this call over here and I can drag it over. And if I give it a couple seconds, it'll pop up this list of options. And now I have the same options I had before for blind, consult, intercom, or mailbox transfer. I can set up a conference call, park and intercom, those sort of features by doing a drag and drop. If I click away, it'll kind of go away because I don't actually want to do that. But again, just grab the call, click and hold, drag them over here, give it a couple seconds to give you the option, and then you can choose, what type of transfer you want to make. So that's the drag and drop transfer that the operator license gives you. All right, so I'm going to end that call and close my contacts for now. Before I get to contacts, couple things you need to know about the software that sometimes comes up is it's kind of always running in your tray. So that's, unless you actually come up here to the Connect Client menu and select Exit, that will actually close the software. The X up here in the top will not. If you click on the X, it actually sends it to your tray. You guys can't see my tray on there, but it's still running down there, and there's a cluster of icons down by the clock in the corner of the screen. If you minimize it like a typical piece of software, it's still going to show it down here in your taskbar, and you can bring it back up from there. If we get into the menu here, the Connect menu, there's several features in here that we want to talk about. One thing I like to point out for new users is we do have an option here for training videos. The user guide also takes you to some training videos. So for example, if I click on this, this pulls up a window that goes out to Mitel's website and pulls up training videos, not just for the Mitel Connect client, but for some of the other features here as well, the contact center, the Chrome plugin, and even some of the phones. So you can actually come in here if somebody wanted to get some training on some of the features on how to get into, the contacts on the phone or the visual voicemail on the phone. That's a good shortcut to get to those features here under the Connect menu and the training videos. Of course, the toolbar we already talked about, show toolbar, edit toolbar, but there's a button in the toolbar for that as well. Coming down from that, we've got our name here. If you click on your name, this opens up a menu where you can get to your different availability states. So right now I'm available for calls. I'm green. I'm ready to take calls. I can put myself in a meeting or out of office. The different modes we have available here on vacation, do not disturb, or custom. Each of these availability states can be pre-configured to do different things with your calls, have different voicemail greetings, or maybe automatically transfer those calls somewhere else. By default, you're available. We'll ring your phone and go to voicemail if you don't answer it, and typically 3 rings is the default setting. All the other ones will send the calls right to voicemail unless you go in and change that. And I'll show you where that change is made. Down here, you've got your primary assignment. So right now, as a lot of users are, my primary assignment is my desk phone. I want calls to ring to my desk phone when they come in. If I want to use soft phone, all I have to do is select soft phone there, and it's going to change my extension to the soft phone feature. And you'll be able to see that here. If we make this a little bit bigger, it actually shows an icon down here at the bottom that shows me that I'm in soft phone. So if I switch that back to desk phone, you can see this shows a little picture of a desk phone. If I choose the soft phone feature, it changes it down here to, I guess that's the quick dialer button, same as the keypad up here. Or I can change it to external number, which little icon here says it's sending all the calls out to my external number, my cell phone. So those are I have that extension pre-programmed in there, or that phone number pre-programmed in there, but I can quickly choose whether I want to use desk phone, soft phone, or external assignment there. Let's go ahead and go into settings so you can see where that's at. If we go into settings and primary assignment, this opens up some more details about that extension assignment we were just looking at. So desk phone is obviously desk phone. There's no choices there. It's going to put my extension on the desk phone that the administrator of the system has assigned to me. If I choose soft phone, now I have some choices for what audio devices do I want to use for my microphone or my speaker. So I can drop that down if I've got several different things, internal speakers versus Bluetooth headsets. I can choose what device I want to use for those. And then external number, obviously what number do I want to send it to? This is a nice feature, if you are working away from the office, you can use the external assignment here to your cell phone. One thing that's nice to know about that is when you have this set up, if I dial from the Connect client, what the phone system is going to do is it's going to set up one call to my cell phone, and then the phone system is going to set up one call to the person that I'm trying to call. And what that does is it actually shows the caller ID of the company on that call that I'm placing. So even though I'm using my cell phone, it kind of hides my cell phone number from those outbound calls that I'm making. So that's a nice way to use the external assignment function if you're away from the office, and maybe the soft phone is not a good option for you. When you do set your external number, there's a couple of very important settings that you don't want to miss here under the edit button. So obviously we can change the phone number, but what's really important here is the number of rings to try, and I currently have this set to 6. You do want to make sure you have this set higher than kind of the default, I think, is 3. The issue there is when you're setting up a call to a cell phone, you might lose a ring and a half or so while the call is kind of getting set up and finding its way through the telephone network and finding your cell phone out there and starting the rings. So there's a little bit of delay there, and so that's one reason you want to bump that up. And then the other feature here is to automatically connect or press 1 to connect. So when I answer my cell phone, when that call rings to my cell phone, you have a choice there, press 1 to connect. What that does is it actually, a voice from the phone system comes on and says, you have an incoming call from, and it reads out the caller ID to you. And then after it does that, it says you have, to accept this call, press 1. That does take quite a bit of time. So in that case, you do want to make sure that you have, the number of rings before the call might go to voicemail set, quite a bit higher. So that there's time for you to listen to that message, listen to that phone number, and then decide whether or not you want to take that call. I usually recommend people just use the automatically connect. So if you answer your cell phone, it's going to connect you to that call that's being forwarded to you without you having to press 1. But that's a setting that sometimes can confuse users or can be hard to find. So you do have to come into your settings, to your primary assignment, external number, and the edit button. So it's a few steps down to find that. Couple other things under the settings. There's quite a bit here. I'm going to skip a few of these and just focus on the ones that are most useful. The call routing. So as we spoke about before, you've got these different availability states, available in a meeting, out of office, and so on. If you want to change the behavior of these availability states, this is the place to do it under call routing. Right now we're going to look at my available state, and the system does a good job of giving me a nice little summary of the settings that I have enabled. So right now calls are routed to my cell phone, and that's because we were playing with that, and I want to set that back to desk phone. So it was good that I went there and checked. So now I can come back to my call routing, and I can take a look. This is what the typical available state looks like. Incoming calls are routed to my desk phone. This phone will simultaneously ring my cell phone. So even though I'm not using external assignment, I do still have simul ring on. So a call will come in, it'll ring my desk phone and my cell phone at the same time. That's nice if I'm, maybe down the hall in the break room. I can answer that call on my cell phone, and then I can walk back to my desk. And when you do have that feature enabled and you have answered a call on your cell phone, and you walk back to your desk phone is going to display a button on the screen that says move. And when you press that button, it's going to take that call from your cell phone and kind of almost instantly transfer it back to the desk phone, because that call is currently already going through the phone system to reach your cell phone. And so it can, almost instantly transfer it back to your desk phone. And so if you're using that feature, you really don't even have to, ask the person to hold or anything, because it just happens right away. They don't even typically notice that you flipped the call back to your desk phone. So that's nice. Or if I'm just out of the office and maybe I don't want to have to remember to, set my external assignment or set my call forwarding to my cell phone, if I just have simul ring on, I know it's going to reach me, kind of whenever, wherever. How many calls before it goes to my voicemail? That's pretty obvious. I've got it set for 5. I do have a voicemail greeting recorded. Again, these buttons out here, I can change that. So if I want to click on this one, it actually brings me up to a prompt that allows me to either listen to or record a new greeting. I can choose here whether I want to do that through the microphone and speakers on my computer or through my telephone, in this case being my desk phone, because that's what I'm assigned to. Usually your desk phone sounds best for that if you've got that option available. I'm going to cancel this. I don't want to change anything right now. Callers are allowed to leave voicemail. That's a choice you have. Maybe for your vacation, you don't want to have that turned on because you don't want to come back and have 40 messages to follow up on. And then callers who press 0 during your voicemail greeting will be forwarded to, in this case, I have it set to extension 1456. So that's an option that you can give in your voicemail greeting. You can tell people, hey, I'm out of the office. If you'd like to speak to someone else, press 0, and then you can choose where that goes to. Again, by selecting the change, and then down here you can choose what extension you want to go to. And then, obviously all of our different availability states, have different options that we can set for them. Out of office, incoming calls are still routed to my desk phone, but incoming calls are immediately routed to voicemail. So even though I am still in my desk phone mode, my phone's not going to ring because it's going to immediately send those calls to voicemail. So there's no number of rings, anything like that. And then you've got some of the same options. I can come in here and record a voicemail greeting. So now that I'm under out of office, if I choose the record, I'm recording a voicemail greeting for my, out of office availability state. So that's how you record greetings for your different states. So that's call routing. Also like to point out under the voicemail tab, we've got a couple of neat features here. Under setup, of course, you've got your voicemail password. You've also got record name for your voicemail greeting. So your name is used if you don't have a full voicemail greeting recorded. The system's going to say, you've reached the voicemail for, and it'll insert that name if you've recorded that. It also comes into play if you forward a voicemail to someone else in your organization. It'll say you've received a voicemail forwarded from, and it'll play that name recording there. And then another neat feature that we have here is the escalation profiles. So if you really want to make sure that you are notified, in addition to, we do have an email notification feature for voicemail, but if you do want to make sure above and beyond that you're notified of these voicemails, you can use voicemail escalation. You can choose to notify either for the first unheard message or for each unheard message as they stack up. And then the way this works is you can add a profile and you can say, okay, when a message gets left here, I want to send an email notification. So I can enter an email address for that. I can attach the WAV file. I can choose whether or not this should only apply to voicemails that are marked urgent, which is, gives the user who's leaving the message has the option to mark that as urgent. I can also send phone notifications if I want. So I can choose here to enter a phone number. And what this does is the system will automatically call out with the automated message to let that person know that there has been a message left in, this mailbox. So it'll say there has been a voicemail left from, and it'll read out the caller ID for mailbox, in this case, mailbox 1455, my extension. And then once I have that, I put in a phone number here, and then I have a timeout. So if nothing happens, if that message is not checked within the timeout, we can add another step here. Oh, it's not going to let me do it until I put a phone number in. Okay. And then we can add another step. Oops. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Add a step. And so now down here, we're going to call this phone number. We're going to wait 10 minutes, and then we can do something else. We can send another phone notification. It could be the same number. We could keep calling it every 10 minutes, or we could make it call someone else because maybe it's not being checked by that person. And so if you've got either your mailbox or any mailbox in your system that you have an urgent need for that voicemail to be checked, you can use these escalation profiles. You can go up to 10 steps where it can both call and email different people on each step to make sure that that message gets checked. So that's the voicemail escalation profiles. I'm going to delete that so it doesn't start doing that on my mailbox. Over here under settings, Outlook is another one. There is a feature to sync your Exchange calendar into your Mitel Connect client. It can actually put yourself into in a meeting when you have a meeting scheduled on your in your Outlook. If you enable that feature, you can also use this to sync your Outlook contacts, so it can read through that. When you're searching for a number up here to call, you can sync your Outlook contacts so it can read that. And then public folders, if your public contacts, if your organization has that feature. Notifications is another setting I like to point out. So right here, as I mentioned, without having to use voicemail escalation, we simply have a simple checkbox here to send an email notification whenever a voicemail is left here. I can choose whether or not to attach the WAV file if we've given our users that permission. And then if I want to mark that voicemail message as heard. So that means it's just not going to flash the red light on my phone and show it as kind of a bold message in my voicemail here in my Connect client. Under the sound notifications, we can get notified with a sound from our computer speakers when certain events happen. So we can turn this on, and then we can choose what event. So like if we, there's a list of events here, a new voicemail, a new incoming call from an internal number, a call from an external number. If we've got monitored extensions set up, we can get an alert when one of those gets called. Or if we're using shared call appearances or bridged call appearances, we can get notified with an audio alert when one of those happens. So for example, if someone leaves me a voicemail, maybe I want to get an audio alert of that. Maybe someone transferred a call to my voicemail, so my phone didn't even ring, but I want to get an audio alert. So I can say, when a new voicemail is left, play an alert, and then I can choose here what audio alert I want to hear. Or of course, I have the option here, if I want to add a new one, I can pull this up and I can browse to whatever WAV file I want to play when I get a new audio alert. And then pop-ups. So you got the pop-ups that kind of come up from the corner of your Windows tray there, and you can choose to have a pop-up come in when you get an incoming call. You got some options here for how long it stays. If you get an incoming instant message through the Connect client, you can get a pop-up about that. Same thing with a voicemail, or if someone's trying to do a screen share with you using the conference bridge, you can get notifications about that. Desk phone options there only apply to certain phones. Again, your soft phone, if you're using soft phone, you'll have the option there to change your audio device. And this one is really handy. So in some cases, users are strictly soft phone users. They don't have a desk phone. We're going to use soft phone all the time. You can go ahead and check this box so that every time the Connect client software starts, it assigns the soft phone. And so that way they don't have to do that every single time. Otherwise, they do have to remember to do that because it's going to leave them as no assignment if they don't have a desk phone. So those are the settings I wanted to hit. We can come back to the users. Got a few minutes left. I'll go through some of the options we have here. We've got the contacts here, obviously. If we looked before, I've got all my favorites here. I can see everybody who's on the phone. We have a couple different ways of viewing this. We have the compact view or the list view. We can scroll, if we want to scroll down through the list, we can see that. Got a lot of contacts here, so it can get a little bit hard to keep up with. And so they give us the groups feature here. I can open up my groups, and now I can just take a look at the different, maybe I only want to look at my service team. So I can just look at that group. Maybe, I only want to look at the techs. I only want to look at the sales. You can choose which group you're looking at. Again, you can still change those views. So if I do want to fit everyone on the screen, I can open this up like this, get a little bit more information on the screen. I can see here, who's green and available, who's orange and on the phone, and who is, red, out of office, do not disturb turned on. Recent is simply your call history. So I can scroll through that. I can see, history of all the calls, either all calls or just missed calls. In the case of all calls, I can see my outgoing calls, my incoming calls, missed calls as well are shown with this little icon with the red kind of bouncing arrow. You can export a list of your call history if you want to do that. You do have that option here. We do get some questions about that, so you've got that option. Coming down the list, we've got voicemails. You can choose any voicemail in here. Listen to it, of course, forward it, save it, delete it, call the person back. All those typical features there. I can look at all my messages, just my unheard messages, or my saved messages. Moving down meetings, if you've got it integrated with Exchange or Office 365, this can show your Outlook calendar items on here. It can also integrate with another feature that I don't have enabled on the system, which is the Mitel My Teams meetings. So not Microsoft Teams, but the Mitel My Teams meetings can be integrated through here, where you can set up meetings through there. There's one thing that you may see on here that I don't have on mine, which is the messages over here on the left, and that is the IM feature, instant messaging feature built into the client. That requires the Mitel service appliance in your system. I've got that turned down right now, so I don't have that feature available in here to show the IM. I do have the work groups. And so under work groups, if I'm a member of a work group and if I have, again, that Connect client license that permits me visibility to work groups, I'm going to see work groups over here. When it's green, it shows me that I'm logged in to my work group. I can choose, I'm in a work group called Demo Work Group that has 0 calls queued in it right now. I can log out of that work group. When I do that, that's going to go red to let me know that I'm not logged into the work group. I can log in. Up here, I have an option to show the work group details. So I can take a look at this. I can see, what calls are in the queue. As an agent, I'll be able to see any voicemails that have been left for the work group. So we have shared visibility to this work group mailbox. So in some cases, some of you may have work groups that have been set up just as mailboxes to take use of this feature. So that you have shared visibility to a voicemail box, even though you're not using the work group to answer live calls. That's a feature that's been set up on some systems. And then because I'm an operator, which gives me all the features, including the work group supervisor features, I have an agents tab here where I can see all the agents that are part of the work group, and I can see who's logged in, logged out, and if I want to, I can log somebody in or out. That is the everything I had to show you guys today. Take a look and see if we have any questions. We've got just a few minutes left. If anybody does have a question, we'll stick around for that. Otherwise, thanks everybody for joining today, and let us know if there's anything we can help you with. All right, we're just about at the top of the hour. I don't see any questions there, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks again, everybody, for attending, and I hope you have a great day.